Council meeting, the town of Winslow, called to order. I will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Lisa, roll call.
Yes. Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yeah.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Perfect. First up is approval of the minutes of previous meetings. The minutes presented are from December 27th, 2021 and January 3rd, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call for that. Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
I will abstain, Lisa, from the December meetings because I wasn't here, and I will say yes on the January minutes.
Perfect. Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Next up, communications is just presented with an updated roster of all the boards and committees for the town of Winslow. Next, reports of committees and commissions, town manager's report, department reports, finance committee report, and financial report.
Okay, you ready?
I am. Before I go though, could you please sign this? And I would like to ask Audra Fleury to come up to the podium if I could. I have asked all of my department heads, month to month, to be recognizing employees for outstanding service during the prior month. And this month, I would like to recognize Audra. Audra, as many of you know, took over as our codes and assessing clerk when we lost Robette Bouchard, and has kept the title of tax collector, but she has also been keeping her hand in our front office. As most of you know, we had a lot of issues with illness and absenteeism due to COVID and other illnesses over the month of December, and we were also short one position for most of the month and two positions for the first half of the month. So it's been a challenge getting all that done. There were days when the only person who was manning that front office was Audra, and she's doing this while continuing to attempt to keep up with her new duties as code and assessing, which she's still learning to a certain extent. She's doing a great job. But Audra, I just wanted to say thank you and recognize you for all the time and effort that you put up in there, because we really probably couldn't have stayed afloat in December without your efforts. Audra's also been training our new folks too, so she's doing a great job, so
Thank you.
thank you. For the other items on my report, as I just mentioned, of course, we had a lot of difficulties with staffing. We only had one person who actually tested positive for COVID and was quarantined. Did not spread to the rest of us, but there were others who were suspected COVID. We're still in a period right now where you don't know with every sniffle or tickle or headache whether you're looking at COVID or not. So we've had people required to be out until they could get a negative test. We've had people out with other issues, including myself. It was a really rough month. So there were a couple of days where we did have partial day closures. As I said, Audra was the only one manning the shop during those days, and she couldn't do it 100% of the time. So we kept it open as much as we could. And honestly, I'm very happy that Audra was able to step up, because otherwise we would have had a couple of days where we had to close. So the new variant in COVID has been spreading so rapidly, and the cases have gone up so quickly that did prompt me to reinstate the mask requirement within the town offices. That's regardless of vaccination status. That's why all of us here have our masks on now, and we'll continue that until we see things start to move back in the other direction again. So hopefully that preventative measure will help us. We still are we've plateaued out for the most part on people getting vaccinated, including among our own staff. The good news is that we have now filled both vacant positions in the front office. Although our first hire decided the job wasn't for her, we brought on Jessie Shea on December 13th, and Tammy Jo Benedict, at the time I wrote this, said will be starting on January 3rd. Tammy Jo has started as of January 3rd. So we now are fully staffed up front for the first time in a few months. Jessie has jumped right in. She's been fantastic. She was already working for the town of Sydney, so she already knew the ropes. She just had to learn how to use the financial system, but she basically knows how to do all of our other duties. Tammy Jo has not worked in a municipality before, so it's going to be a little bit steeper learning curve for her, but she's got a fantastic attitude, and she's going to be really great to work with. So look forward to how that office is going to work out up there. I also would like to recognize that Jessie, even though she's brand new, she kind of took on the sewer billing, which we have been very late on because we lost the clerk to the sewer billing right before it needed to be done. We needed to get Munis to actually train us how to do it. Between Audra and Jessie, they managed to get Munis to train them, but Jessie, being brand new, just jumped right in on that. She's been fantastic, so really appreciate that. We do have several remaining positions vacant. Carrie Ann McAndrew was supposed to be coming on board in the executive assistant position. She had withdrawn her applications. However, now at this time, she has tentatively reaccepted the position. I have asked her to give us a letter of intent that she will come on as soon as her situation in Connecticut is cleared up and she can actually start. So that will be within 2 months. Looking forward to having her starting that. The police officer position remains vacant. We do still have some candidates in selection, and the full-time code enforcement officer will be filled by Amos Michaud. We're just trying to work out when that actual full-time date's going to be with the town of Madison. So the Amos will be our full-time permanent code enforcement officer, and I think he's going to be absolutely great in that job. He's already done a great job, and he's still learning and growing, so it's going to be fantastic. We held the second coffee with the manager meeting on December 1st. We had quite a few suggestions come out of that. One that I promised I would bring up to council was the idea of lighting the trail going down to the 2-cent bridge out here by the gazebo. There are residents who actually walk back and forth to work in Waterville, and in the winter hours they're coming home in the dark. So, I told them that would depend on when we could get funding and such for that, but it is with pedestrians, it's probably a good idea to consider that going forward. There were also discussions about holding a spring plant sale to fund the Winslow Garden Club. Lots of people have perennials that can donate to that effort, including myself. In addition, there was an idea to ask one of the local businesses to donate a shrub or tree, which we could then auction off and generate some more money to get that going. And that's in an effort to not have the entire cost of plantings on the town, but rather things that we can kind of do some fundraising and get that moving. The event could also include art and craft vendors and generate more interest. And we've already put some feelers out, and there's quite a few people who are interested and said they would pay $20 to $50 to set up a table and get that moving. Overall, the meetings have been generating some great interest. I did have my third one last week on Wednesday. I will update everybody more on that one next month, but we had that one over at Big G's, and that was also a good discussion. So the hope is that in this outreach we can start generating some more public interest. It'll take some time to get it fully going, but and also having it out at other businesses, it'll allow us to start getting some of the businesses more involved in where we move the town forward as well. This holiday season, we were able to procure holiday banners for display along Benton Avenue and Bay Streets. They went up a little later than desired because first there was a delay getting the banners, and then realized that we couldn't hang them with our existing hardware. They were just too heavy. I scrambled to find the hardware, but by the time I got everything in, it was a little bit more than a week before Christmas. But I would sincerely like to thank Peter for getting the help of CMP and hanging those banners, and Dale for really spearheading helping getting that up. So I appreciate both of you getting that done. That was kind of an important thing for me personally to want to get that up this year. The banners look great. We'll be able to reuse them year after year, and next year we can do this a little bit earlier. And hopefully we'll also be able to season, get some new things to put up, so we've always got something going on in the town. In addition to the holiday banners, we did get kissing balls that were hung on the Sebastopol Bridge. They were 100% donated, and that was at the effort of our garden club. I guess we'll call her our chair, Susan Dutel. We received donations from Sarah Watson, Lana Ortons, Renee Smiley, Janice Nixon-Savigny, and Peggy Follador and Rachel Lassard. So I thank all of them very much for donating to that effort as well. In December, we also had the Wreaths Across America event come to Winslow. That came through town on Sunday, December 12th. They held a ceremony at the VFW Hall, and also want to thank Peter Tibitot over at the school for the course coming over to perform for everyone during that event. And the Fort Halifax chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, they issued a report of what they've accomplished over the last growing season. I did forward that to all of you counselors so that you could see what they've been doing. Winslow cemeteries are full of historically significant markers, and they've been repairing, cleaning, doing a lot of work out there to honor our fallen patriots that go all the way back to the Revolutionary War and even some before. So I just wanted to thank them for the work that they've put in, and please do review what they've done on your reports. As far as projects go, the new town website is moving into migration now. I finalized pretty much everything, actually as of this morning, with the site map. So we're going to start data migration now. Dude Solutions, we did have our first training, first week of January. We went through a training with department heads that basically will be using the system to issue work orders and such, and keeping track of their assets. We did discover there's a few things we need to work out as to how we're going to make all that work perfectly. So we did put off the second training till a little further out in February. But we've got, actually to a man, our department heads are really excited about what they're going to be able to do with this and how they're going to be able to track everything. Even Paul, who has been a little bit skeptical about whether he could make it work, he stood up and said, this is going to really help me with the FEMA reporting. So it's a good deal. The junior high environmental study, I did reach out and talk to Craig Wilson finally. Craig, unfortunately, thought that what we meant was that we didn't need to have anything done until spring, so he thought it's low priority. And I said, well, it is true that we have decided to keep the school open for the year, and therefore it's low priority to actually get it done, but we still would like a date. So he's trying to get us on the calendar right now. He said he'd prioritize that. So as soon as I have that date, I will let you all know. So December was it was another really busy month for us despite the holiday breaks, and I just want to say I appreciate the patience of the residents as we dealt with our staffing issues and 3 partial day closures, as well as the day we closed for the holidays. January's starting the budget season, so it's going to be more busy, and I look forward to another productive month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Eric, and thank you. I would just like to say something briefly here about the Daughters of the American Revolution. They're an organization that repairs Revolutionary era gravestones and cemeteries all across the country. And as some of you probably know, myself and Ray and other volunteers have been trying to clean up our cemeteries, doing something like they do. And I saw the work they did. And much as I gotta say it, they did a better job than we did. They did an excellent job on a lot of the cemeteries. To the extent, and Erica, I don't think you know this yet, but they are gonna request a recommendation from the town so that they can bring it to other towns to show that we appreciated the work they did and what a good job they did. And they will do more restorations in other towns.
Yes.
Thank you. Peter Tibitot, School Superintendent. He has a report.
Good evening. Just a few quick notes. Several of you have alluded to this already, but We continue our battle with COVID, and we continue our battle with keeping our children in school. Thus far, we've been very successful. We're still in school 5 days a week for in-person learning. That is not a light task, I will tell you right now. Many school districts around the state are not been as fortunate as us, and have had to go to remote learning at this point in time. Due to the inability to find substitutes in all areas of the operation, be it teachers, be it ed techs, be it custodians, be it whatever it is. It's extremely difficult to find people. Today's a good example. We had 8 positive cases at the elementary school. We had 7 positive cases at the junior high school. We had 4 positive cases at the high school. We have nurses right now still working on reports, so the work never ends. This is a very difficult time for all of us in education. Having said that, none of us would be working right now if it weren't for the incredible efforts of everybody who were there. Everybody's pitching in, everybody's doing things that they normally wouldn't have to do in order to stay in school for in-person learning. And that includes the parents. And I would like to give a shout out to the parents this evening. Those parents who are working with us to keep their children and the school community safe by doing the daily screenings with their students before they come to school, keeping their students home if they're not feeling well, and letting us know if they test positive for COVID. All of us working together is crucial in making this year a success. Just another quick hitter, the work continues in other areas. So you mentioned contracts in the budget starting. We're in the same boat. We're starting our budget work. We're also starting negotiations. This year we have negotiations with our Teachers Association, we have negotiations with our ed techs, negotiations with our secretaries, negotiations with our food service, and with our custodians. So it's going to be a very busy winter, spring year in terms of negotiating with everyone. Questions?
For negotiations, Peter, is that for this coming year?
Yes.
So whatever.
Yes. Yep.
Peter, on behalf of the council, I think we all know what a great job you guys are doing. And I think that's recognizable in the community. And keep up the good work.
Thank you.
On behalf of Police Chief Leonard McDade, I wanted to read a letter that came out of his monthly report from one of our residents. It says, "Hello, my name is Jackie Williams of Vassalboro. First, let me apologize for the late email. I intended to write much sooner. Untimely deaths of my late husband, followed by my oldest son's suicide, have set me back considerably. I was involved in a terrible car accident on May 7th in Winslow. Officer Hubert responded. I was ultimately life-flighted to CMMC and hospitalized for 5 weeks, requiring extensive surgery to save my leg, broken neck, other fractures, and a brain bleed. I recall little of the accident itself. What I do recall is Officer Hubert's compassion and his calming voice. He worked diligently to get me to safety, to find my next of kin, contacting my daughter in Montana, and then making sure that my parents in Clinton were notified in person via Clinton PD. Close to my hospital discharge, Officer Hubert followed up with my parents to check on my well-being and asked if they were able to save my leg. He even stopped by to see me at home following discharge. My family and I are so thankful for this compassionate and caring man. I'm happy to say that I am walking, driving, resuming an almost normal life. I am beyond blessed that he was on duty that evening. You should be very proud to have such a kind, caring, and compassionate officer as part of your team and department. I am forever grateful. Sincerely, Jackie Williams."
So we need a motion for,
Please motion to accept all reports. Second.
all right, roll call. Peter Drapo?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes?
Jerry Quirian?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Bravo?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Perfect. Up next is public comment.
Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda for tonight? There being no one, then the public comment portion of this meeting is closed.
Up next, tabled business, ordinance number 03-2021, providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of tax map 13, owned by Steve Martin. This portion is described as lots 87, 88, and 89 of the Dunbar Acres and Dunbar Acres Annex subdivision, from the high-density residential district to the mixed-use district.
It's my understanding that's going to remain tabled.
It has to. We have received, Mr. Martin provided his attorney's letter today. I have sent that to the town attorney for review, so that he can issue his opinion. Then it will have to go back before the planning board to make a recommendation. The planning board, after we held the public hearing jointly between the planning board and the council, no action was taken at that time. The situation was tabled fairly immediately, so the planning board has never made their recommendation, and before the council can vote on it, they will have to make their recommendation. So once I get the opinion back from the town attorney, I will forward that on to Amos Michaud and to the planning board, and they should be able to consider that for their February meeting.
Up next, old business, order number 34-2021, providing for authorization to change the part-time finance clerk position authorized in the fiscal year 2022 budget to a full-time finance clerk with a salary range of $17.07 to $19.67.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? This is a second reading. No discussion. Lisa, we have a roll call?
Yes, Peter Drapo?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Kurian? Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Bravo?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Order number 34-2021 passes 7-0. Next up is new business, ordinance number 01-20-22, an amendment to ordinance 33-1973 to change the membership of the planning board from 5 members and 2 alternates to a 7-member board with no alternates, to clarify that votes will be decided by a majority of members present rather than a majority of the full planning board, and to establish the first reading meeting in January as the date upon which the planning board will elect its officers, by adding the underlined and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section.
Second. Second.
Whereas this requires notice for a public meeting, it is 6:25 PM. We'll have the public meeting. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this issue? There being none, at 6:25:030, the public portion of this meeting is closed. Is there any discussion?
With the 7-member board, what do we need to have a quorum of the planning board?
4.
4, okay.
4 would constitute a quorum.
Mr. Chairman. However, it's also, if you look at the wording that we changed, it will be a majority of the members present and voting that will be able to pass official business. So if there are only 5 members present, it can be passed with 3 votes. If there are only 3 members present, it can be passed with 2 votes.
Excuse me, Eric, 3 members is not a quorum.
That's not what the new ordinance says, though. It's a majority, this is what we had Bill Lee work on. It's a majority of members present and voting.
I was just assuming it had to be quorum.
You have to have a quorum
They
to
don't,
have a legal meeting.
their ordinance doesn't read that way.
So,
If you had 4, you could pass it with 3.
So if two show up for a planning board meeting, that is enough for a legal meeting?
Technically, we wouldn't be able, I mean, I suppose if you had a vote of 2-0, but,
So through the chair,
Yes, Jerry.
so if you had one member show up for a planning board meeting, you'd be at mercy of that person.
Do you ever see that happening?
no.
Well, I'm not saying that it
No. but-
can happen,
Quorum time.
may happen.
No. We can sit here with hypotheticals all night. Erica,
This says a majority of the members present and voting. That's the way it reads. And according to Bill Lee, they don't need a four-member quorum to vote on an issue.
I believe the reasoning behind this was, one, there was a perception that the chair couldn't vote, which the chair can vote and should vote, and two, that we had issues with having to have members recuse themselves. And in some cases, that will put us below 4 people. Or it could. Although with a 7-member board, it's much less likely than with a 5.
Through the chair,
Yes, Jeff?
I personally would rather see 4 as a quorum. Just,
Well, I'm leaning that way too, Jeff. To have 1 or 2 people, or even maybe 3, making a decision for the planning board on a 7-member board, that's leaving the decision in the hands of 1 or 2 people. For example, here at the council, we have a 4-member quorum with a 7-member board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
is that dictated by state law as far as having to have a quorum, or is that dictated by ordinance?
I thought it was required by state law. Now, of course, I could be wrong, but I think there's some provisions in there for a quorum of the members, of the total members of 7. Whether it's part of the state law or not, I would certainly feel more comfortable if there was a quorum of 4.
I think,
I would too.
through the chair,
Yes, right.
I think if, well, 4, the only problem with 4 is that you have 2-2. If you do 2-2 for a tie, then it's defeated.
Yes.
So most people want to go with an odd number. So if the quorum is 5, even if you include a couple people, that's fine. As long as you have 4, 5 there, then if you recuse, you still got 3 voting members. Then the majority, in my opinion, 2-1 could approve, because at that point in time. But I still think you need a quorum. If you got 7 people, if it's town council is 4, then you might get into trouble with a tie, and that would defeat the measure.
but that's the same way that we would do it.
Yeah. So even with 6, even if 6 show up, you still could have a 3-3 vote. So when it comes to that many, you gotta take the chance, either 4
Can
people
we
in this tie,
amend
or 6 people in this tie.
So,
But the fact is on a quorum, is a quorum necessary? Do we think there should be at least a 4-member quorum to transact legal business? Rocky?
So wasn't one of the issues, participation in this committee, that we weren't getting the members showing up, and wasn't there a couple times when they couldn't even have a meeting?
Yes, and
So,
well, they were also down a member at the time.
correct, but, that was an issue, so do we wanna see how things go as far as attendance goes before we,
I think, Rocky,
Change.
that's why we went to a 7-member.
I realize
versus
that,
5,
but.
to have 7 permanent
Correct,
members.
but are we still gonna have an issue is what I'm saying, as far as attendance goes?
Well, I suppose we can run through every scenario in the
Oh,
book.
definitely.
And something's gonna come up sooner or later. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. I think the best we can do is try to focus on what is the most likely to happen.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Erica?
it does read in the ordinance that the majority of the planning board shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business, but a smaller number may adjourn from time to time.
Yeah.
So that is, you've still got that language in there, but this part is already in your ordinance, that a smaller number may adjourn. And then it's a majority of those members who were voting.
Yeah, but when they adjourn, they have to notify the members that were not there
Within 8 hours of.
within 8 hours, and then
Yes.
they can hold the meeting. So that's, I guess, answers some questions.
No, it doesn't say before holding the meeting.
Or no.
It says who were not present. That indicates that it's after the meeting.
They have to be re-notified within 8 hours.
Yep.
That may be a safety net to answer some of the questions if
If
not enough
it's a
show
majority-
up.
If it's a majority of the members, you'd have to have 4 there anyway.
Yeah. But if less than 4 show up, that,
This is saying that they can still hold the meeting.
on 8 hours' notice to the others,
They would have to notify the other members that they held the meeting and what the proceedings of the meeting were within 8 hours of holding the meeting, so afterwards. And that's already in your ordinance. That's in section 2-16 of the code.
Through the chair,
yes, Ray?
I think 7 members, going to 7 members and trying to fill as much as you can is a positive thing for the planning board. I think if you have 7 members, permanent members, voting members, at that point in time, you'll have 4 there, more likely to get 4. If you keep it at 5, you're likely not to get 4 sometime. So if you have 7 voting members, at least you're gonna have 4 there. You can conduct a meeting at that point in time. And I think that's the way we should go, but I don't want 3 people showing up and still having to have a meeting. I think that would not be proper at that time, just my feeling.
No, I think I agree with that, Ray.
I do too.
That it
This is
require a 4-member quorum
Yes.
of the 7
Have that
in order to
language in there.
transact legal business.
Through the chair,
Yes,
I know
Ray.
this is not required, but, and I hate to put anybody on the spot, but Gary, you're here. Do you have an opinion? If you don't wanna express that, I'm just thinking you might have an option. If it's through the chair, if the chair agrees that that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I did my homework on this. My reading of the ordinance and the Maine municipal guidance indicates that, generally speaking, on a 7-member board, the majority of the quorum is 4 members. That's what's stated in the MMA. It also states further in that you may, at the lack of having enough members to give you the 4, that you can reduce it to the majority of the members in attendance. And that's what the ordinance is set up for. Given the situation that we have with 7 members, I think we're in pretty good shape, that we won't run into a problem of not being able to hold a meeting in this circumstance, the way this is written. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman? So, what would be voting on tonight is the way the ordinance is written right now that Bill wrote, correct?
The amendments that
The
Bill wrote,
amendment.
yes.
Can we strike the language here and now to go forward with this tonight? To say that it's gonna be a 4-member quorum?
You have to amend more of the ordinance than what we amended to do that. You would have to strike out the language that is in the current ordinance that says that a smaller number may adjourn.
That's in the current ordinance?
That is in the current ordinance.
So we're gonna postpone this another
No,
month?
we can have a motion to amend to strike the language of the 8-hour notice. part of it.
You can have that. I would suggest that any further changes, though, we still run through the town attorney. This is an ordinance. We generally do not pass ordinance language without council weighing in.
I myself don't see a problem with striking the language on minimal amount of members and adding the language that it has to, with a 7-member board, it has to have a minimum of a quorum, 4 people. I don't see where we can get in any trouble with that. I'm sick and tired of prolonging things on and on and on.
I think we can move to amend, taking out that portion that Erica read. And if Bill Lee disagrees with it, we can deal with that at the second reading.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if Bill Lee agrees with it, then we're all set to go to the second reading next month.
I don't see how he could disagree. That's the way that the town council works. It's a 7-member board, you need a minimum of 4.
No, it's our choice to amend the ordinance as we deem reasonable.
It is, however,
And-
MMA generally does the overarching rules for how planning boards in the state work. So you would be in variance with their guidance. So that would be my suggestion as to why. And I agree, you can amend tonight, we can send it back to Bill, and you can deal with it at your second reading. However, generally, we do adhere to whatever MMA's rules are. We're using their document to set up the planning board rules as our, it'll be edited for specific to Winslow issues, but for the most part, MMA is considered the standard.
Gary, you mentioned in your research, just a second, you mentioned in your research, you looked at the MMA stuff and researched it? Did that reveal that a 4-member quorum with a 7-member board is all
My
right?
reading of that was that if the MMA original or early in the document says that if you have a 7-member board, in order to have a quorum, you must have 4 members voting. It was that succinct. If you have less than the 7 members there, you, in a later portion of the document, it did address that you could have, if you had 5 members present, that you could go with a 3-member majority. That's what it said. But it was up to whoever makes the ordinance to determine whether or not that part of it would apply. And basically what you're gonna look at is, if you have 5 members, you're going to have 3 for a quorum.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Ray, did you have something?
Yeah, this is what I would do. I would make the suggestion that we vote on it the way it is right now. We know, get with Bill Lee during the month here, before the February meeting. And then at that point in time, we wish to say, can we amend to a quorum of 4 people? And at that point in time, let's discuss that. We'll be discussing it through the month. You'll give us updates, but let's just vote on it now. We're trying to amend something that we might not be able to amend. Let's just vote on the way it is, knowing that we need some clarifications with the 4-member quorum. And that way, we don't have to have a lot of discussion today. And we'll get legal counsel to weigh in on the 4-person quorum. That's my suggestion at this point.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if we do it that way, if we accept what, as it's written right now, I may be wrong, I'm asking the question. Can we amend it after the first reading? We can. So it doesn't need another reading after the amendment?
No.
So we're not talking 3 meetings?
No.
Okay. I'm willing to do anything that'll take to move this forward.
Yeah, and I know the planning board is anxious to get this in motion, so we can vote on it today as it's written today. We'll have the second reading in February, at which time we'll have an opinion from Bill Lee to amend it to the 4-member quorum. and then we can take the second reading in February, and then this could take effect in March, after the 30 days after the ordinance change.
Or we could table it.
No, we're not gonna table it, Gary.
No.
No. No.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Peter,
may I ask Gary a question?
sure.
Gary, what is your opinion of this? Do you have a problem, I mean, on having 4 members show up and take a majority of the 4, or 3 members show up and take a majority of the 3, or would you like to stick with the way the council does it, where you need 4 members for a quorum?
I believe if we're gonna have 7 active members, that we should at least have 4 present for any meeting that we have.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I think.
Well, that's,
With no further discussion, we'll move the motion.
Yep, Jerry made a first for the motion, and Lee made the second, so we can do a roll call. Peter Drappo?
yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Querian?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Perfect. First reading passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 03-2022, approval of the attached council letter to the Maine Department of Transportation, expressing the town of Winslow official opinion regarding the traffic flow around Titanic Bridge during the bridge replacement project scheduled to begin late 2022 and early 2023.
So, second.
Discussion, Erica?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to bring up briefly that I did receive communication from Steve Daly over in Waterville on Thursday. Waterville is now looking to have full closure of the bridge as well. So this would kind of be, no guarantees that MDOT would go that way, but at least both,
You want to repeat that, Erica?
I'm sorry,
Would you want to repeat that?
Waterville is requesting that all lanes be closed during construction as well. So it would at least put both towns on the same page of music when it comes to how we want it handled.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask that that letter be read so it's on public? For those who don't know.
Yes, it's a lengthy letter, Jeff. Would Erica, in addition, could that be posted on the website?
Absolutely.
And also maybe the chief's letter
Yes, we can.
and maybe that DAR letter? Oh, no, that wouldn't be necessary. We'll take care of that later, but if we could post your letter to DOT
Yep.
and the letter from to the police chief,
Yes.
and that could be posted. Jeff, would that be satisfactory to post these on the website
I'm fine with that.
instead of reading the whole thing right here?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I just didn't see it anywhere out in the public, so.
Well, yes, nobody in the public right now knows what this letter says. And if we get it out there posted, then people will know what it is.
Right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jerry?
all right. Since this existing bridge has sidewalks on both sides, well, that number of pedestrians use it, how are they gonna get across?
2-cent bridge.
With no lighting?
That is correct. We have been asked multiple times to light the bridge. So far, it's been a point of debate. My understanding is prior council did not want to spend that money.
How about including in your letter to DOT to see if they be willing to pay to do some lighting?
I don't think that's appropriate in the letter. I can ask the director or the program manager if that's a possibility. Fairly sure the answer is no. They are not taking that on as being their business. Their concern is that we have detours available. And they are primarily concerned with the vehicular traffic. I can certainly ask the question. I would not anticipate getting a yes. It's especially because it's been something that the towns have been haggling over for a couple years that really should have been something that the town should have done anyway, as far as working out what we would do for nighttime pedestrian traffic. It's kind of the same issue we've got with the rest of the trail coming up from the 2-cent bridge up to here.
The other thing is, utilities, power, telephone.
All of the utility coordination has been done. They are well aware of everything that's on that bridge. They have multiple plans in place regardless of which traffic pattern is used, whether that be lanes of traffic kept open or a complete closure.
All right.
But I will ask the question about the lighting.
Thank you.
Further discussion? We'll have a motion to accept the resolution number 32022.
We already have the motion. Jeff and Jerry was the second. So are you ready for a roll call?
Yes, we are.
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Resolution number 03-2022 passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, resolution number 04-2022, approval for the Winslow Public Library to transfer artwork by Jean Victory to the artist's niece, Marissa Giggy, for no fee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I had made the comment at the last meeting that I believe this sets a bad example. I still feel that way to a certain extent, but after reading the letter that was provided, I would tend to change my mind and go along with this.
Further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Jerry.
We've already have a precedent. We turned over the East Winslow Baptist Church bell.
Town didn't own that bill.
There's an issue, Jerry, of whether the town actually owned that bell itself, because it was personal property when the church was foreclosed on. That's an issue in the past, who owned it, but that issue's been resolved. But it is similar, Jerry, but I think the difference between the two is that we know we own the picture, the painting, because it was donated to us. So it's up to us to do what we would think best for the family.
That's fine.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Erica?
The family, or the young lady, did offer up monies for this, for the piece of artwork. That would be up to the council if they wanted to amend the resolution to accept some of those monies. I'm not going to give an opinion, my own personal opinion on that. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that.
The letter requests that it be with no fee. I
That's the
think.
letter from the family.
From the family.
The original letter from Ms. Giggy was that she would be willing to pay for the painting. But yes, the resolution was written as per the letter from the family.
Yeah. Ray?
Through the chair, I don't believe that we need to accept money for a painting that she wanted to give, that she has personal, attachment to the thing. That's just my personal opinion, that we should waive that. I don't think we should ask money for it. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Peter?
I would agree with Ray. I think that would set up probably a more negative example, is to start selling off property that was donated to the town. I think that she has demonstrated that it was her in the painting, and the rest of the family agrees, and the lady at the library said didn't mean anything for her to keep it.
No, our director at the library was against the principle of allowing donated items to be returned to the donees because, again, it was setting an example
Right, yeah.
and a precedent that we might return other things. I think it's a little bit different returning a piece of artwork versus actual cash donations. That to me would be unreasonable if the heirs would come back and say, oh, my great-grandmother left you $10,000 and we as the heirs would like that back. I don't think that's a reasonable request. I do think when you look at this particular subject matter, that it's a little bit of a special circumstance. I don't think had this been, for example, a master like a Monet or something, that we would be sitting around talking about whether we would be returning it to the family.
If I
Right.
might, through the chair, I think that requiring a cash payment would be inappropriate. But if the owner or the recipient of the painting wanted to give a donation, that would be a private matter between the recipient and the library. And then, I think that would be more appropriate.
My feelings are that going forward, I will support this painting going to the heir, but I think in the future, we've got to be careful on what kind of precedent we're setting on giving away town property. If the bell was there, maybe that was a situation in the painting, but I think going forward, we've got to give some thought to what policies we're going to have in place to give away or sell town property. Any further discussion? Lisa, roll call?
Yes. Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes,
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Resolution 04-2022 passes 7-0. Next item, discussion items. First up, Taconic Bridge lighting.
That would be me, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Erica?
So we had discussed, back when the project first was presented for replacement of the Titanic Bridge, that between Waterville leadership and myself, we had wanted to do some more aesthetic lighting along that bridge. To that end, MDOT and the engineers, the consultants they have on there, did go out looking for some alternative lighting. MDOT's in agreement, but Waterville and Winslow would have to split the cost. My initial feeling was that would be somewhere around $50,000 per municipality. Turns out I was pretty close. I sent you all an example of the lighting that we could get. It's very similar to what's on the Sebastopol Bridge, only taller, because it's a much larger bridge. It would cost approximately $46,000 per municipality to have aesthetic lighting rather than just the plain poles that are similar to the ones that are already out there. What I'm looking for is whether the council has an interest in pursuing that. Obviously, it would come out to a budget issue, but I don't want to pursue it at all if there's not a certain level of support among the membership here.
Discussion?
the one on Sebastopol was basically paid for by the town, part of, yes, a certain amount of whatever was paid for by the town. The difference was the difference of cost between the regular ornamental lighting versus the ones that we have. And I think it was like $1,500 per light.
I'm not sure the actual per light, but that is exactly the situation that we're talking about now. MDOT will supply the standard lighting. Anything above and beyond that any ornamental lighting would cost, that's what the towns need to cover. So we're not covering the full cost of lighting the bridge, but we are covering the excess above the standard lighting fixtures.
Mr. Chair?
Peter?
With what effort Erica has made, and a few of us have made, to try to start beautifying this town to the extent we've been able to thus far, and hopefully go forward with a lot more, I personally don't have a problem spending $50,000 to put up the particular light. She sent us pictures of them, matches Sebastopol Bridge. They're much more attractive than your standard light poles, if you will, with a LED head on them. So that's my opinion. I think we've got to start somewhere.
Ray?
Through the chair, Erica, did Waterville weigh in on what their choices are right now, whether they're gonna go forward with it or not?
They have not been to their council yet, as I'm just bringing it to you. However, Steve Daly and the engineer are both in favor of, actually, it was Steve and I who discussed this initially, way back when we first talked about the project, Steve being the town manager over in Waterville. Both of us at that time agreed that we would go back to our leadership and investigate being able to do something better than the standard lighting and make that more of a gateway between the two communities, rather than just a functional passage.
And through the chair again, this is all, these two options are recommended by the engineers for safety and for lumens necessary for pedestrian pathways.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. They had to go back and do some research. Initially, it was thought that the type of lighting that we had on the Sebastopol would not be sufficient, but they went and did some research on what was available. And these particular units that they came forth, the appearance is similar, but they are taller and they throw light further than the shorter models. So,
Rocky?
Yeah. So if we decide to illuminate the trail, do they make lights? Could we kind of use the same type of light, so the aesthetics are the same?
we could certainly do that. We would be looking at the shorter models.
Yeah.
Something more like we do have out on, and probably even shorter than what we've got on Sebastopol Bridge. They do make them in multiple heights, multiple power, so, you know, but yes, that would, ideally, we would try to match our lighting, and those are available in that similar style in a smaller lamp.
Erica, would these poles include banner brackets already on the poles?
Nothing comes with them already on the poles. The banner brackets that I purchased will function on those poles. You would need to use the straps rather than nailing them into the...
Any further discussion?
Next item is discussing time allowed for public comment.
If I might, do
Yes,
we
sir.
need to take a straw vote on, we haven't given you direction yet, have we?
Not specifically, no.
So should
Well, we
we-
I mean-
consider it budget time?
Well, yes, but I do need to be able to tell Waterville, as they're preparing their budgets, you know, that yes, Winslow's interested in this, or no, the support just isn't there. You know, and the other thing we would be looking at is the lighting won't come in till towards the end of the project. So we would have a couple of years to put away money in our capital budget, rather than doing it all at once. So we wouldn't have to fund it all in 1 year. We've got approximately 2 to 3 years to fund that.
Through the chair, could we
Yes,
have
sir.
could Lisa do if people are comfortable with it, a roll call vote, just to see, or a straw vote by the chair, say who would be in favor at this time, if we're comfortable with that?
No, we can do a roll call. Lisa?
We can do a roll call, hold right on. Peter Drappo?
Yes.
Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Clarion?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
And Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Thank you. Alrighty, so next item, time allowed for public comment.
This is something that I had asked for last meeting. Looking at it from afar, I think there's been some issues in the past on public participation in these meetings. What our rules and regulations say right now is that a 2-minute limit on comments related to a town matter not involving an agenda item, if the comment period is at the beginning of the meeting. There is another one that says we can allow public participation basically at the discretion of the chair and the council. What I have proposed is some time limits and maybe rearranging the time that the comments come up in the meeting. I was proposing 3 minutes for certain things, 10 minutes and 5. The presentation part that has always come at the beginning of the meeting for 10 minutes, I would propose that that stays the same. What I have called public participation would be 3-minute limit, and a firm 3 minutes, only on that specific agenda item as it comes up on the agenda. The item will be read by Lisa that item. Any member of the public can come in and speak for 3 minutes on that agenda item only, and we'll go through the agenda in order. Public hearing, of course, as we know, is different. That would be for 5 minutes, and again, would take place when that agenda item comes up on the agenda. Finally, there would be one of public comment where any member of the public can come in and speak for 3 minutes on any issue that was not on that night's agenda. I would propose that that public comment section comes at the end of the meeting. Hopefully, this will allow more public participation at our meetings and back and forth from the councilors and the speaker on questions, that the speaker, during their 3-minute or 5-minute or 10-minute presentation, could ask questions to the council through the council chair. The answers to those questions would be included in that speaker's time. Once the time for that speaker has expired, then the council could ask questions of the speaker if they have questions. And we would limit the speaker's answer to those questions to 30 seconds. So the answers are short and concise. And as I said, hopefully this will improve the public participation in these meetings. Any comments, discussion? Oh, Lee?
Yes. As far as the open comment section about speaking about anything other than what was on the agenda, I myself, just my opinion, I feel that should be held at the beginning of the meeting so that if anyone wants to speak and they have no other further business for the town, that they're welcome to leave.
That's why we actually did it that way in the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Any further discussion on that point, putting public comment at the beginning rather than at the end?
Providing it's anything to do that's not on the agenda.
That's not on the
It's
agenda.
the same
Correct.
public comment we've had right
Yeah,
along.
no, I agree with that.
And just upping the time
Okay.
from 2 minutes to
Yeah,
3 minutes.
no. And again, the 3-minute limit.
Yeah,
Yes.
fine with that.
That's fine,
Okay. Presentations stay at 10 at the
Yes.
beginning of the meeting.
yes.
Public participation, 3 minutes when that agenda comes up, item comes up on the agenda.
Yes, and I think it's a good idea to have the participation as, right after we read that particular item on the agenda. Whereas now they have to speak at the beginning of the meeting. It just makes more sense to have the discussion with whomever wants to discuss it after that agenda item has been read.
And public hearings remaining at 5 minutes, and that will take place when that agenda item comes up on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
So am I.
Further discussion or comments? Right?
I have to think about it a little bit. The public comment people, the public comment section, are we proposing that that be somewhat interactive?
Yes, that's a proposal. My only thinking behind that, Ray, was that if they want to ask a question of a council member, that council member's answer is part of their 3-minute time limit. And I think in the past, there have been speakers who have wanted to ask questions. Do we want to allow the speaker to ask questions of the council? I mean, that's something we can discuss and decide on. Lee?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, my suggestion would be, I would just hate to see the meetings get bogged down with the back and forth. If I feel that if someone has questions for the council, and maybe one of the counselors that is being asked doesn't have the adequate information or facts to weigh in on a specific question, that maybe the question could be answered in writing back to the individual within, 5 or 7 business days, or less. I mean,
That's a good point, Lee, but can that be handled at the time that comes up where we may not have the answer to their question? If we have the answer to their question, and we feel confident in the answer, can we answer it at that time instead of going through the writing process? They're gonna have 3 minutes total,
And our answer is part of that 3 minutes.
and your answer is part of that, and so I don't think we're prolonging a
Right.
3-minute
but
period.
my concern is what, the possibility of a counselor, using up all their time, and then they feel like they're being,
Well, that's their decision to make at that time. And I mean,
but they won't have any idea how long our response is gonna take. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could basically filibuster their time and just take up the rest of their time just to make them go sit down.
Right?
I think that that's a slippery slope. That's just my opinion right now, is that
it's a what, Ray? I didn't
it's a
understand.
slippery slope. It's like, how do we, they ask one question, which counselor do they ask? What if they want to follow up with another counselor? Does that put a counselor that they know might be against them on the spot? As I see that as, I'm all for interaction with the public and having their say, but I really would have some concerns of how to govern that type of interaction. And you're talking about after, like, every order or every resolution or every ordinance that's on the agenda? Is that what you're,
Each item that's on the agenda.
That's already in our rules and regulations, actually.
Well, it is, but it doesn't set specific time limits.
Correct. But what I'm getting at, somebody could come up on resolution 322, and they could take 20 minutes right now, because we don't have any time limit set on that.
It's been informally the 2 minutes that you guys have used in the past. But yeah, it says whatever it's set by the council. You're right, 20 minutes, or we could say a minute.
but it's up to the chair to acknowledge the person in the audience if they want to raise a hand. I believe that's the case. But
Yes.
is it, normally we don't recognize, at least in the 12 years I've been on the council, rarely do we recognize somebody after an order reading that we have in the audience. That's-
Okay.
If I could
Yes,
clarify,
Erica.
Mr. Chair. So the only rule we have about the public comment guidelines, it does specifically state that there is no back and forth between the council. That's different than a public hearing. So this would be a departure from what we have done in that rule. So we would be amending that rule. That's actually, I'm sorry, that is in writing, that there is no back and forth during the public comment. There has always been allowed a back and forth on your public hearing because they can ask questions of the presenter, or like, for instance, with the zoning things, they can ask the developer questions and try to get some answers. But the public comment, and I believe, and I could be wrong about this because I haven't been here long enough, but I believe the intent behind that was to limit the amount of time that could be taken and avoid the situation where counselors would be requested to answer questions that they have no way of being able to answer. That is just background. I mean, it's up to you all to deliberate how you want to do that, but I'm pretty sure that was why it came to be the way it was. So, you know, whatever you all decide, I just wanted to make sure, you know, it's different.
Rocky?
Yeah, so with the Newtown website, wouldn't there be a way that if they had a question on something that was coming up in the meeting, they could write in, and that way we would have a chance to kind of answer appropriately, and then it wouldn't take up the time of the meeting? If we could make that public so that they knew that was available?
There is, and we will definitely be, once we've got that piece up and running, we will definitely be putting it out to the public that this is now available. One of the things that I've requested, it's a two-piece thing here. Dude Solutions is the ones making the form, the interaction form, if you want to call it that. And they asked me to come up with 10 different categories. One of them is requesting items for a council meeting. So that's in there, and that would be directed to the clerk. So we could certainly manage that way. Obviously, there would be no guarantee that everybody would do that, though.
No, but at least it'd be an avenue.
Yes.
I mean, there was an instance just less than a month ago where it could have gone pretty ugly if that was the case, if we remember. So I would just caution that, I mean, I'm all for participation and comment and back and forth, but it can get a little dicey. That's all.
The concerns are there. I certainly know that, yes, it's gonna have to be controlled and whatever. And keep in mind, it's my understanding, we can change these anytime we want. If we put these into effect and your concerns become real, Ray, and other concerns about the question and answer back and forth, we can change it on the perspective that, geez, I'm sorry, folks, but it's not working out. It didn't work out. Let's just move on. Any further discussion? So I would suggest that the presentations remain 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment is at 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, only on non-agenda items. Public participation is 3 minutes at the time in the meeting where that item is on the agenda. And then public hearing will come into place for 5 minutes when that agenda item comes up. And that speakers will be able to ask the council questions, but the council questions are part of the 3 minute or 5 minute or 10 minute time limits. When the 3 minutes expires, if the council wants to ask questions of the speaker, they can, and the speaker's answers are limited to 30 seconds, short and concise answers. And then, of course, we can always add in that any extra time or deviations from these are up to the discretion of the council, as it is now. we probably should take a roll call on this and see where we come out, and go from there.
You wanna go ahead with that?
Yes, Lisa, roll call, please.
Roll call, Peter Draffo,
Yes.
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian,
Yes.
Ray Karen,
No.
Joseph Gravel,
Yes.
Jeff West,
Yes.
and Lee Trahan.
No.
That's 5-2.
Oh, actually, it's a discussion item.
Yes, it's a discussion item, Jerry. These are rules and regulations that we adopt ourselves.
That's right.
And we probably didn't discuss it, but they could take effect next meeting.
And that is right.
If I might through the chair?
Yes, Ray?
I think it should be a resolution, and at the next meeting, we vote on the resolution for the changes. That's just my opinion, so that we have them in writing, and it's not vague or anything. I think that that's just the proper.
The previous one, Ray. That were provided to everybody at the last meeting. I just written out. I understand your concern, Ray. Is there a need, if we do it by a resolution, then we're gonna have, if we see fit to have to change them because of some of these concerns come up.
Just write it up, that's fine. Just write it up, so
Yeah.
pass it around next time.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
think
think
it'd
it,
be under the rules and procedures of council meeting.
Yes.
yep, that's fine, that's fine,
Yeah.
yep, fine. That's just, yep.
And that gives us, if we wanna change them halfway through a meeting because of these concerns coming up, then we can do it.
As long as they're written down someplace, that's all I care. Okay.
Next item, discussion item, schedule budget meeting, dates and times.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Erica?
this was my item as well. I think I've mentioned to most of you that I'm not on track to have budget to you by February 1st at this point. There's just been a lot of obstacles that have come up this fall, and it's not just myself. I've got some department heads that are struggling with that February 4th date too. I don't think we're that far behind, but I also think that it wouldn't put us necessarily behind at the end of the cycle, because we were talking about doing 2 longer sessions during the day rather than doing the 6 to 8 evening sessions that we were doing before. To make that happen, we had to schedule out a much longer period of time for the workshops. So knowing that, though, we do want to start getting the workshops scheduled. I know we had discussed in a meeting before having 2 longer afternoon sessions, and also still keeping maybe at the end of one of those afternoon session an evening session, so that the school board wouldn't have to come in during the day for their session. I'm not sure what everyone's thoughts are. I would say that at an outside, I've got about a month delay in getting the initial budget, my budget, to you. We're trying to do a much better job of data gathering, of making sure that we have some actual research going into what I propose for salaries going into the next year, not to mention some of our other capital things that we've got coming up. You know, for a large part, we've been taking a lot of shots in the dark, and certainly last year with my first budget, it wasn't the best budget I've ever submitted, just because I only had a couple of months before having to submit that for the first one and not knowing the town all that well. I would prefer, so long as we can still get the budget passed by July 1, that we have a little bit more time to do a better job at preparation and have a lot more of the questions answered before we bring it to you all. So that would be my request, but I would also like to talk about when we want to have the actual workshops, knowing that.
I, for one, don't see why on earth it was ever requested or required to have that budget to the council by February 1st. my opinion only, if you have it to us some point in March, again, it has to be, we have to have a final budget done by June 30.
Sue, is it June 1st that you have to, if the council doesn't approve your budget by June 1st, your budget automatically takes effect?
Yes, until you come up with a
Until
final,
you-
it's an interim,
Yeah,
an
until you
interim
come up.
budget. It's really not all that uncommon for towns to have carried that over when they've got controversial issues in their budget. For instance, look at our neighbors over across the river last year. I don't think their budget was actually final until August or September, but that's not ideal. But it wouldn't be the first time it had ever happened. One thing we do need to be cognizant of is being able to vote. The school budget, by our ordinance, has to go to the voters for referendum. So we
Is
want
there a
to.
date on that referendum yet? What's the date for election in June? It's,
Second Tuesday in June, I want to say it's the
Second.
12th. I don't have a calendar in front of me right now. But I think that's the date.
Second Tuesday's the
14th.
14th.
14th, okay.
Peter, do you have any idea when you would present your budget to the council? Were you on schedule or?
Well, I'm liking what I'm hearing right now, because like all of you, we are a little bit behind with everything for all of the reasons that you're behind. So a little bit more time for us would be welcomed as well.
When is yours supposed to be before the council?
Well, in years past, you've always asked me to have something ready by the end of March, I believe.
Isn't that in the charter?
So say April 1st?
It's
Erica, I have no problem whatsoever giving you another month, at least until March 1st, to get the budget to the council.
Nor do I.
Any councilor disagree with that?
Does that work for you, Erica?
And if you need more time, you'll probably get more time.
I believe I can have it done by then. I've been working all along, like I said, unfortunately, some of the other, I'll be honest that I think I bit off more I could chew this year with the launching the new website, with the new asset management system, with the payroll system. Those things all took me away from some of these other normal duties more than they should have. Then we had the absences, my own illness, it just kind of put me behind. But I believe I'm on track to have a budget to you by March 1st.
And if you need more time, Erica, to make sure you're comfortable with it, you will come before us and ask us for more time.
Point out to the chairman
Yes,
that
Jerry.
you ought to look at the town charter when the budget has to be submitted.
The town charter, I believe, says that right now, Erica is supposed to present the budget to the town council 150 days before the start of the new fiscal year, which is February 1st, give or take a day. That was changed a few years ago from 120 days. There is nothing in the charter that I can find that says what are the ramifications if Erica does not get her budget to us on time.
Now,
And I'm assuming that we are more than safe by giving Erica more time to prepare a correct budget rather than a hurried budget.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, and the other provision is that, like we just discussed, if the council does not approve Erica's budget by June 1st, her budget as presented to the council takes effect until such time as the council does approve a budget. So those are the times that we're looking at. We have the school to consider also, because they have to go to referendum. And if Peter gets his to us by, I'm not sure, Peter, if there's anything in the charter on the school budget presented to the council for a time.
I haven't found anything.
I haven't gone that far yet. If you feel comfortable with April 1st, I think that's fine. And if you need more time again, because you're dealing with the June 15th, June 14th deadline, we're not.
Right, and sometimes we still don't know what we're getting from the state
Yeah,
until those numbers are finally given to us from the
Yeah.
279. So a little more time is good, because we've had plenty of times when we've come to you and we've said, we don't know what we're gonna get, but this is what we're guessing. not a good way to operate.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's actually been a lot of waste of our time.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's the state. You gotta get the state to get these things to us quicker. But that's probably not gonna happen.
For example, one of the things that always comes in late are the insurance savings. We always project high, 10% insurance savings, and we never know what those savings are gonna be sometimes till the end of April.
Yeah.
Through the chair,
Yes, Jerry?
one of the reasons that they don't know what they're gonna get from the state is the legislature.
Yeah. Well,
They're
we're
the
down
ones that are
and
running
lobby
it.
some legislatures on our behalf, Jerry, for them to get their numbers out sooner.
But
And it's,
he might not know this until June 30th,
Yeah, all right.
1 minute before midnight.
yeah, no, and maybe even after that. So for you, on your deadline, Peter, of June 14th, if you got it to us by April, then we have basically the month of May to act on your budget with the council. That should be plenty of time.
Not exactly.
Well, maybe not. Erica?
We vote on the budget as a whole, which includes the school's figures. The council always has the discretion to waive a second reading, but, and I'm not sure how it worked under the 120-day limit versus the 150. But if we were looking at turning in the initial budget to you all March 1st, I would think we could start scheduling some of our workshops by at least, at the latest, the last week in March. Depending on how much time you all need to do your reviews before you're ready to go into workshop, we could still be hitting primarily where we hit last year with our workshops. Last year, I believe our last workshop was March 30th, March 31st, where we had the school come in with its as final as we could get numbers at the time. And that, Peter brings up a very good point, and it's not just the school, it's all of us have struggles with having good figures when it comes to the other agencies we depend on to know what we're getting. So, state revenue sharing came in, that got changed several times after we voted on a budget last year, so we're never going to be perfect. But there are other things where it just would be, we need, particularly with capital, we need to have some good numbers in. Paul's working hard on his part for me. We've got some other capital issues going on. Unfortunately, last year, what we did with a lot of our capital was we just kind of threw up the numbers that we had in research from years past. And we know that we're not going to be able to do that this year because prices have just ramped up to the point where anything we have that's data from a year or two ago, as far as what something was going to cost, is fairly useless at this point. So we could be asking for something that we think costs $25,000, and in reality, the cost has doubled now. So that's not effective either. But I think if we started looking at, say, the week of March 21st for having our budget hearings, and we scheduled some 4 to 5 hour sessions, I think we could still be pretty ready to go by the April council meeting for having a first reading. And normally that's what we do. Normally we have the first reading in April. That means Peter's budget would have come to us April 1st. We probably want to have another session that week to go over his budget, but then it could still get on the agenda for April with the rest of our budget. I don't know how that all sounds to everybody, but I think we can still, given that we don't do, how many budget meetings did we have last year? We had some crazy,
5 or 6.
yeah,
Or at least.
at least. Yeah, and then we had some extra ones where we went over capital again, because we kind of went over capital too early the first time and didn't have all of our ducks in a row, so.
I think what works here, Erica, is what works for you and Peter. So you tell us
My suggestion would be that we aim for having our first budget meetings the week of March 21st.
Okay.
That we do some afternoon session. It doesn't have to be afternoon. I know
Morning.
there's,
It has to be morning for me, if we're gonna do them during the day.
okay. How does that work for you, Jeff? Because you're also
Huh?
working.
I can take
Well-
time, that's not a problem.
I don't think that,
No, mornings are not good for me, just logistically.
If we were to say, schedule, say, 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon and bring lunch in, how would that work?
I'm good with anything. I'm
Doesn't
flexible.
bother me either way.
Your boss won't get mad?
I do my best. I'll get here just as soon as I can, if I'm a little late.
I'll come get you.
I've got my only issue is I have to be back to my place by 3 o'clock.
So if we planned on ending by 2, we'd still get you there. We just have to be deliberate with our time and not run over.
Well, yeah, whatever it takes. I was hoping if we don't get going at 8 o'clock and run till 2.
We can't get one of your counselors here by then, though.
No way.
Can't,
Take an act of Congress almost.
Unless somebody knows a home caretaker who can go over there really early, so.
5, 6 o'clock in the morning. That might be a little difficult.
well,
Or,
We'll work it out, it'll work out.
yeah.
or we do some remote participation. This is not a voting function, it's a discussion function, it's a workshop, not a meeting where you all are issuing votes, so I believe we could still have some remote participation if one of you can't be here in person at those times. Or I believe in your case, Lee, that would constitute an extenuating circumstance. It's not something that you have any control over. So,
It's specific in the new law that they passed with COVID, that I'm sure Lee would qualify for the Zoom part of the meeting.
yeah, it has to be a declared emergency situation, and that can be declared by myself as the town manager or by you as the chair. A lot of things qualify. Illness qualifies, inability to get transportation to the meeting would qualify, being out of town would qualify. So I think we could do that.
If I might through the chair.
Yes, Ray?
It seems to me that during the day from 10 to 2 to 2:30 is a lot of times during the budget season, at least what I see is we come in and sometime we're done, we come in at 6, sometime we're done at 6:30 or 7, because some of the times we're not utilized correctly. So I think as long as we organize that 4-hour span, if we really, 3 or 4 4-hour spans would be more than adequate to get the budget done during that month. The only other question I have for you is, why would we need a budget by March 1st if we're not gonna have workshops till the 26th? Why not give you another week till March 7th, and then we schedule at that point in time accordingly after? That's my question. What's the point of March 1st if we're not gonna meet and discuss budgets till the 26th?
Okay.
I don't care what the other councils
And I don't know,
feel.
it depends on how long you all want to digest the information before we sit down at a round table. So if that's the will of the council, that's fine. The only other caveat is I would like to make sure that we do get the meetings posted far enough in advance that, because they are open to the public, they're not, they still have a 3-day minimum notice requirement, 3 business day notice. So we don't want to wait too awfully long to schedule them, and we need to make sure that we are notifying our organizational support members enough in advance that they have time to schedule it. I am not worried about scheduling them in the day versus the evening, because part of their jobs is to solicit monies. That's part of their daily business function, so they should be able to come during business hours.
Just through the chair again, let's just say you'll have the budget by March, I don't have a calendar in front of me, by the second week of March, we schedule firm and then we schedule workshops in that March period for that time, so that we give you plenty of time, the public knows when the budget, the department heads know when they need to have it done, and then we schedule those workshops, and by the end of this week, we should be able to schedule the final, when the budget's due, and the workshops, so that we all can plan, and the public can plan, and the department heads can plan. I don't wanna be wishy-washy and set, let's give them more time in the future. Let's do firm stuff, as much as we can, but give you plenty of time, and then if we have to change it, we can, but everybody's got a goal. Everybody's got a date, everybody's working for the same goal. If it needs to change, they can come to us and change it at that point in time, but we have it locked in for the schedule. And it doesn't have to come out this week. You can wait a week to send the schedule, but as soon as possible.
I'd say March 14th
Yeah, me too.
would be the earliest we'd need it from you.
Yeah.
That's second Monday in March. Which is actually,
It's a council meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, and then schedule the workshops.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Peter?
let's back up. Last year, I proposed we do an 8 to 10 hour day, get this over with in one day. As we talk about this, now we're talking about 4-hour days and maybe schedule 4 of them. Wait a minute, hold before. If we had 5 evening meetings last year, let's get to work, let's get it done. If we can't do this in 2 6-hour days, that's 12 hours.
I was thinking 2 days, not 4.
Yeah, 2 days.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody mentioned.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The only cap, the
Well,
only
2
cap-
days,
2
but
days.
let's, again, as Ray said, let's show up, get to work, and address the issue.
The only caveat to that would be we'd have to have another 1 or 2 with the school board.
Right.
Well, that,
I mean-
yeah, that's understandable.
Why not do it on Saturday if you need to?
That's another possibility, up to you all. It
I
may
can't
be,
do weekends.
Well, this is January. I'm assuming, Erica, that by our February meeting, you will be able to be a little more definite, and then we can come up with more definite times and dates at our February meeting.
yes.
Okay.
Singing music.
Even the March meeting was March 14th. Yeah, no, that would be too late. But our February meeting, we can fine tune it more. We'll be closer to the time.
Okay.
Does anybody remember exactly how many we had last year?
I think we had 7.
I thought it was 7. 'cause
Yeah.
So,
I
There
had
was like-
written that down
There were
somewhere.
9 or 10 scheduled, but we consolidated down to 7, I think.
yep.
And I'm assuming, Erica, that the one that you might think is gonna be the most difficult and most time-consuming could go first, to get it out of the way, so we're not dragging on at the end.
Not,
Or does it
in
work
my
the other way around?
opinion,
Does it
the
work
most
other way?
difficult's probably gonna be capital, and I don't necessarily think you wanna front load that.
Okay. Yeah.
If you front load it, you'll rush through it.
And that's where the bulk of it's not the most money we spend, but it's the biggest ticket items are gonna be in that budget, so.
It's my opinion, just my opinion, through the chair again, is that capital's always been last, so that we can go through the day-to-day budget type of requirements for each department and what their needs are, and then what their plans are, and then we come up to capital, what their plans are, and then we go to capital for new programs, new equipment, or whatever they have to do, so I think capital's at the end.
I tend to
Always
agree.
Okay.
been.
Well, this is my first go-around, so I don't know these things.
Capital's always been at the end.
You're about to get intimate with it.
I'd offer to hold your hand, but I don't wanna be misinterpreted.
So let's go to, we're looking at the middle of March, get your schedule, get the things out, and let's just move on here.
Okay, I don't think we need any votes on this. We know where we're coming from, but we'll discuss it further at, put it on the agenda for February meeting. Motion to adjourn from anybody.
Second.
From Jerry, seconded by Jeff.
No, Lee.
Lee, excuse me, seconded by Lee. Show of hands. Unanimous.
That was a new rule.